want to tell you a story. A rabbi tells stories. It's about a rabbi who was wandering the town on a long journey, and he stopped one night in a small town. The town only had one Jewish person in it. So that man invited the rabbi to come stay with him. And that man, he was poor, of meager means. And the whole time he was with the rabbi, he sighed. He had a heaviness about him. And the rabbi said, what's wrong? And the man said, you deserve so much more, and all I have is just this little bit. I wish I could give you more honor. The rabbi chuckled and offered the man a blessing. The next morning, the rabbi left. As it happened, in the days and weeks that followed, the man's fortune turned. And he started to amass great wealth, so much so that soon he was the richest man in town. So rich that people would come to his home to ask for help, to ask for charity, for tzedakah. So he built a fence and hired guards to keep the people out. Then a few years later, that same rabbi came passing through the town again and heard stories of this man whose home he had stayed at. The man of meager means who had rose to be the wealthiest man in town. And he went to see the house. The guards tried to shoo him away. The rabbi said, I am the one responsible for his wealth. Tell your master I'd like to speak with him. So begrudgingly, the guards go inside. They wait a while. Eventually, they come, get the rabbi, bring him into the parlor. He waits a while. The man makes his way to the parlor, says a few short, curt words, pretty clear he wants the rabbi to leave. And the rabbi says to him, look out the window. What do you see? And the man says, I see people going out around their business. The rabbi says, look in this mirror. What do you see? Only myself, he said. The rabbi said, the only difference between a window and a mirror is a thin gilt coating. It's time to scratch off the gilt. And as this Hasidic story goes, the man wept, oh yeah, I know, it's me. Please, let me keep my wealth and I'll change my ways. And he does, and everyone lives happily ever after. But we know that's not always how it goes. We kind of hold on to the mirror a little too long. We forget about the windows. Emily Stile, that's her name, I got it right? I think so, all right. Emily Stile is an educator who teaches about the balance we need to strike, particularly for our children and the stories they read, between mirrors and windows. How often we look at ourselves and how often we look outside of ourselves. And it just so happens we sit in an institution that is dedicated to windows. I'm a very lucky rabbi. I walk into a sanctuary with beautiful windows. Our sages teach that windows are obligation. The sanctuary is not a mirror institution. Yes, it's a sanctuary. At times, it's a refuge from the worry and the hardship of the world outside of us. But there are no mirrors in here. We have windows. The rabbis of the Talmud, they say that you have windows so that your heart can be directed towards heaven. You know that feeling, that one where you just get in prayer. Or you hear the cantor sing a Shema Kolenu and it shakes you to your bones. A few centuries later, in the Shulchan Aruch, Joseph Caro says that we have windows so that if we squint hard enough, all of us just might see Jerusalem. The idea that all Jewish communities, when we gather in prayer, our hearts are directed to the same place. That our prayer unifies us no matter where we are across the globe. He also says that the sanctuary should have 12 windows. 12 for the 12 tribes of Israel. so that each of us might see ourselves as an opportunity to reflect and refract the light. Each of us is seen in the structure of the sanctuary, of our sacred place. I want to offer a few other visions of windows, why we need windows in our sacred space. Turns out a window goes two ways. We have windows so the outside world can see in. This is not a secret what we do in here. It's on Boxcast and YouTube and Facebook. Hi, Internet. We have to ensure that the words we say here are words that we're proud of, that we're not ashamed of our liturgy, that we know that when we speak and when we sing and when we pray, we're meeting our highest values. And how special to be in this congregation, where we have our own siddur, our own prayer book, where we had that opportunity to ensure that the words of our sacred book match the values that we live. I had a teacher, a visiting teacher when I was in rabbinical school. Her name is Yavila McCoy. She's brilliant. She's a leader of organizations that help integrate and build communities of belonging for Jews of color. So she came to Hebrew Union College at 1 West 4th Street in Manhattan and said to us, it's at West 4th and Broadway, and said to us, imagine for a moment that our chapel was a banana, and we peeled down the sides of the chapel. You are in the middle of Washington Square Park. How do you feel about the words you say here? Does this match our values? Are we talking enough about peace? Are we talking enough about the world around us? Are we talking enough about the hardship that we see and that we face? Because the other challenge we have, the other reason we have windows, the world can see in, but it allows us to see out. It allows us to peel back the walls and be in Washington Square Park, to be where we are, and to see the world around us. We have windows so we can see, well, it's dark now. You know there are trees outside, right? All right, good. So we can see the natural world. So we can remember that there is a world outside of this refuge, of this sanctuary, this safe place. And thank God we have the safe place, but we come here to strengthen ourselves and strengthen our resolve for the work we do when we walk back out the doors. We see nature and we have sacred moments of wow. Abraham Joshua Heschel, the great rabbi, theologian, sage of the mid-20th century, he says that that's radical amazement. That moment when you see the rainbow or the sparkle on the trees, or during my interview in the chapel, which is that way, right? Yeah, chapel. In the chapel, when I was meeting with the Vod and a buck walked by, you saw its antler, just wow. That those moments are sacred and we need that while we're here. But we look outside because as the prophet Isaiah would tell us, in the Haftarah that is traditionally read tomorrow morning, Isaiah would say, what are you doing here? Oh, you're going to come and bow your head like a reed and wear sackcloth and ashes. Oh, yeah, it was so bad this year. Don't you see there are hungry people outside? Don't you see that there are people who don't have enough clothing, who are destitute, poor, have nowhere to live? You're going to come and fast. Good for you. Tomorrow you're going to go back and oppress your workers? This is not the fast that I desire, Isaiah tells us. Our job when we're in here and we see the outside world is to know that this work is practice. This is where we come to refill the tank, to practice for the work that we'll do in the outside world. We practice words of compassion, words of peace, and words of wholeness, and words of healing, not just to look in the mirror, but to look through our windows. Because when we look out the window, we also see who we left outside. And I want to read you a quote. It's from one of my beloved teachers and mentors. Her name is Rabbi Lynn Landsberg. And Rabbi Landsberg of blessed memory was a powerhouse, brilliant and strong woman. She was a rabbi first at Central Synagogue in the city, other congregations across the country. She was a regional director for the Reform movement, and for a time, the associate director of the Religious Action Center, our shared office in Washington, D.C. that does advocacy and social justice work on behalf of the Reform movement. In 1999, Rabbi Landsberg was in a serious car accident and suffered a traumatic brain injury. And after much time and effort, she learned again how to speak, how to walk, how to drive a car, and became the religious advocate in Washington, D.C. for disability rights issues. She founded the Jewish Disability Rights Network. She founded the Interfaith Disability Advocacy Coalition. She spoke up in our synagogues and across the country for the rights of people with disabilities. Here's what she says about our windows. In Brachot, in the Talmud teaches that a synagogue must be built with windows in the sanctuary. I believe this is so we can see who is outside and unable to join us. As Jews, we have to maintain mental windows everywhere so that we understand that those whom we refer to as shut-ins are not shut in. They are cruelly shut out of the life many of us take for granted. We have to begin by helping our larger communities understand that we Jews have to change our attitudes. There's a saying in the disability community that goes, before ramping buildings, you've got to ramp attitudes. That's our work. We will work to make sure that our building is ADA compliant. I'm pretty sure most of it is. But our work is how do we ensure that we don't leave anyone outside, someone who's looking in the window wondering when they'll be invited in. I'm thinking of our beloved Kay in the office, who during COVID called so many people who were alone and continued those relationships so that they were known and seen in that time when we were all far apart. We look out our windows, and that's why we do our work in DEI. And I know that acronym for some is harsh or hurts or makes you angry, and it's because it's been unfairly injected into culture wars. What DEI is for, the reason we do it is because we know that there are people who have been unfairly shut out of our community, and we want to bring them in. We want and we need to change our language, the structures of our community, to look at our leadership and the words on our websites and in the documents we send, how we structure our world to ensure that everyone is welcomed in. It's why when you picked up your name tags in the office, there were little stickers that you could add to include your pronouns. Maybe for you, I don't need my pronouns. Everyone knows my pronouns. We are not a we if we have theys. We wear our pronouns so that every single person who walks into this building, whose face we see when they enter sacred community, whose names we strive to know, feels seen and loved for exactly who they are. Call them with the words and the names that make them feel seen and known and loved. And if that's inconvenient or complicated to learn, we can accommodate our own discomfort if it is to build a community of love and compassion. That's our job here. And we know when we look out our windows and wonder whom we have left outside. We can read the Jewish demographic studies that foretell the doom of the Jewish people because of intermarriage. Another sermon for another time. I have a lot to say about that. Suffice it to say, I reject most of that doom and gloom sociology. I think it is amiss. What a miracle in the history of the Jewish people. We who for centuries and centuries have been maligned, persecuted, hunted, scorned, live in a world in which we are desirable partners for marriage by majority society. It's funny and it's a miracle. How amazing is that? That Jews are welcomed in civil society. And yes, there is a rising tide of anti-Semitism. But there is opportunity in front of us. There are people who want to marry Jews. There are people who want to be part of our community, who are curious, whether they choose Judaism or not, who are curious and loving and show up to our sacred space and lift us up and defend us and support us. You have to go back less than a century to see that that is a miracle. Ooh, excuse me. So, I'd like to offer words of blessing. And I know that many who are not Jewish, who are here on Kol Nidre of all days, to show up to synagogue on the holiest evening on the Jewish calendar, and to have that not be the religion of your birth or the religion of your choice, to be here, I want to offer blessing. This year I won't ask you to stand, but I can't promise I won't do that next year. If this is you, you know it's for you. You are the partners and in-laws who love us and who we love. You are the friends who care for us. You define our lives. You've taken classes, you've read Jewish books to deepen your own understandings so you can help make Jewish homes. You've learned Jewish cooking. You drive carpool. You host Passover Seders, and some of you build Sukkot. You join your family at the Shabbat table, and you even set the table and make it beautiful by your presence. You come to our services. You hum along with Hebrew prayers. Some of you have even learned to read our ancient language. I hope your family tells you how wonderful you are, and that they thank you and tell you their love and gratitude. We thank you and tell you our love and our gratitude because you make us joy. Your presence honors us, and your presence makes us stronger. As we set about this new year, may we be blessed by your presence, and may you find blessing in our midst. I should add that prayer is a prayer written by Danny Zimmel, who's a rabbi at Temple Micah in Washington, D.C., which he developed a number of years ago with Rabbi Janet Martyr in Palo Alto. Here, we want a big tent. We want people who want to do Jewish with us, who are welcomed and celebrated. We want our words to match our values, and we want our words to inspire our deeds. Here, we come to know each other's names. We join in the sacred work of study, of building real, honest relationships, and hearing a prophetic call. This place is not a mirror. We are not so arrogant and stiff-necked to just look at ourselves and pat ourselves on our own backs for our own good deeds. We look out our windows and see the world and see our responsibility. We invite in those who want to join us, and together, all of us start to build a world of wholeness, of compassion, and of peace. Gemar Chatima Tova. May you and the people you loved be sealed for goodness and for blessing in the new year that lies before us.